Call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. We want to thank everybody for being here. If you'll rise for the invocation, please. Almighty God, we do give you great thanks and praise for such a special year last year, your blessing upon Seaford, your hand upon us. We just cannot thank you enough. You blessed us more than we deserved. May we honor you this year and how we serve our community. May we continue to do things that are righteous in your eyes. Be with us here tonight to help us make wise decisions. We ask this all in Jesus' name, and everybody says, Amen. Who's man standing for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, as a reminder to council tonight, we do have an executive session following our regular meeting. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting on December 13th. If there are no changes or corrections, I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Before we go to public comment tonight, we do want to announce the winners for the Christmas decorating contest. None of them could be here tonight, but the first place winner was the Hitch family on Hurley Park Drive. Second place went to the Miranda family on Plantation Drive, and the third place went to the Mullins family on Cypress Drive. So our town is beautiful at Christmas time. We appreciate people decorating. So. By the way, they get first place is $100, second place is $75, and third place is $50. So to help with that electric bill. Yes. So, okay. Do we have anybody here tonight for public comment?
Yes, Teresa Allen.
Teresa? Come on up to the mic, please. State your name and address for the record, please.
This mic right here?
Yes, you can pull it around.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Sorry,
Thank you.
somebody messed with it.
My name is Teresa Allen, and I'm...
Mrs. Allen, can you turn and face this
Yes,
direction
yes.
so we can?
See,
There-
this is
there
my
you
first
go.
time.
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine.
Okay.
My name is Teresa Allen, and I live at 111 Nylon Boulevard, but I'm here for a reason. I understood you're going to be discussing the property out at the Nylon Capital Shopping Center, and what I wanted to just put in, but I thought it would be at the end of the evening, is that my company, Nanticoke Fence, we've probably done about 25 or 30 pickleball courts throughout Sussex County and Kent County, and it's just amazing what I see. In fact, down in Selbyville, they were so desperate for one that they actually leased some of the ground from John M. Clayton, the old tennis courts there at the school, and they've built like 14, we did 14 pickleball courts just on that area there. But this is, this is one that we just completed. And some of it, I'll make it brief. Pickleball is a court sport. It's played on a badminton-sized court for someone who might not be familiar with it, with a net set to only 34 inches. It's played with a perforated plastic ball and wooden panels. It can be played indoors or outdoors. It's a competitive game, and it promotes social everybody, it seems like everybody gets along. You don't really have to be really sports talented. It can be played as singles or doubles, and new players learn the basic rules quickly. It's governed by the USA Pickleball Association, and a court is only 20 feet by 44 to have two together. And in 2021, it grew by 4.8 million players in the United States. And so my idea is that if there's room somewhere in that parking lot, and it looks like it's a fairly good surface. We usually work with Jerry's Paving. They usually put down the underlayment, and then they put the color over on that like that. But a court like this size right here, I'm not saying, you know, who it's for, but that was only $13,000. That's all. And Scott Cahall from Jerry's Paving is going to give me a price on what, you know, it would be to put a surface on there. But I thought if there's any money left over for that, then I was also thinking somewhere out there would be, we've done this in Wilmington, the basketball courts. And the lights stay on until like 10 o'clock, and it's a good place for kids to go out and exercise and something for them to do. And so I was thinking, you know, a pickleball court and maybe a basketball court too. So that's just my idea. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mrs. Allen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody else here for public comment?
No,
That's it?
that's all.
No, we have one up front.
Yes, sir. You didn't sign up, but you'd like to say something? Please come up and just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Sell, live at 327 Pine Street. I came to my first city council meeting last month because I had some concerns going on my street. And I told you guys at the beginning I wasn't going to voice it out in the public domain, that I would rather talk to you one-on-one. Mayor Genshaw, I spoke with you. Councilman King, I spoke with you about my concerns. Had some pictures that I showed you at the property we were talking about. 3 days later, that property was cleaned up. I give you guys kudos. You've earned a great deal of my respect because of the swift action that you took. And so I'm here to say that it's proof that getting up, standing up, getting involved in your city does get results. And I do have another concern about another property on my street. And again, I'd be glad to get with you one-on-one. I have pictures to show you. But mainly I want to be here to thank you guys, Mayor Genshaw and Councilman James, for your swift action. I appreciate it you know, you just won't know how much I appreciate it. Because I've been complaining about this property for 5 years. And I come to the first council meeting, and in 3 days it's fixed.
Well,
Great job, guys.
Kind words.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your kind words.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Is there anybody else for public comment? If not, we're going to invite, on our first business is we're going to invite Mr. Rob Herrera up, who's the developer of this project, and he's going to sort of lay out at a high level where we are, where he is. I shouldn't say where we are, where he is, and how this is going to look. I will say right at the beginning, he's going to go through these slides. This is a presentation to council for public to hear. At the end, there will be a contact so you can reach out to him in that way. But Rob is committed to come back on a regular basis as this project unfolds and bring updates. So we're excited for this being one of many updates.
Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for your support in this project. Thank you so much, Mayor, for the support over the months that got us here. And thank you to the community for being here today. I know it's tough because I can't address you guys as I'm looking forward. But I'm excited to present this project. Again, I want to reiterate that this is just the first of many. This is an evolving project, but today the goal is to kind of spell out myself and our team's vision for this project. To reiterate, my name's Robert Herrera. I am a real estate developer, and I'm also a small business owner. I'm a partner at 9th Street Development Company. My other partners could not be here today, but they send their regards. I'm sure they're listening in on the Zoom meeting, as we've done many times over the last year. But 9th Street Development Company, I always like to start with this, is a company that we named, and we thought of this a lot, after a street in our community in Wilmington when we first started our company that was blighted, had fallen into the hands of FDIC because even the bank foreclosed on it. And we just couldn't stand for that. And we worked really hard, pulling any source we could at the time, we were young developers without a lot of equity behind us when we first started. And we used tax credits from historics, new market tax credits, along with the DDD program, which you guys know can be so impactful. And we named ourselves that just because it was a product. We didn't really have a pro forma in mind of what we were going to hit. We knew we wanted to transform an area of our city. And I think that should resonate to the Nylon Capital Shopping Center that we have here today. So I'm excited to present that and sort of outline our high-level game plan, and then talk about some of the programming that we can announce today. And again, we'll announce shortly thereafter. Do we want to? How do I click? I can just click the next button. Yeah. Sweet. I'll probably do it. Thanks. So this is Nylon Capital Shopping Center. I think all of you are very familiar with it. Just some of the salient points of this site. It's 243,000 square feet of buildings that rests on 22 acres. And the current condition of it is it's 22% occupied. So the occupancy rates are not good with the retail tenants that we have there. There are 10 existing tenants, and we'll touch base on how we work with them, but I will say right now that we plan to respect all existing leases and work with a lot of the leaseholders, but there will be a lot of reshuffling. Also important to note, it's 18.6 acres of impervious surface. That's a new stat that I just came across, which, you know, it's a lot of pavement. What if this could play? Sorry, this is just us showing off this model. Tricia, you ever hit the play button on your end since you have a mouse? So anyway, this is just a high level model of, just so you get a feel of the site. We're just getting familiar with it and rebuilding different massings. We'll circle back to this in a little bit. But this model, as I mentioned, will continue to evolve as we work on the planning of the overall site. As we're looking at Rite Aid now, their lease expires at the end of this year, and we've already begun talks to try to get them to renegotiate. They're a tenant that I think would make sense at that corner, and we would like to keep them. Redevelopment goals. 1, we want to build an innovation district. 2, we want to rebrand the entire campus. We're gonna change the name from the Nylon Capital Shopping Center. We want to attract innovation drivers and institutions to our concept, and we want to bring neighborhood amenities in the form of retail to the site as well. And then, as a high-level goals, as we do all this, we want to stay connected with the broader township as we do this process. And we mentioned that we're going to continue to present this. What does all that mean? I'm going to dive into sort of each point and explain what I mean by an innovation district. It's a relatively new planning term. They've popped up all over the country. I will also mention, I forgot to say this in my bio, my background is, I joke, I'm a recovering architect, but I also sometimes that hits, sometimes it doesn't. But I also have a planning degree, and I'm obsessive about master plan exercises and how to lay out a site carefully. Innovation districts are relatively new. They're a manifestation of some mega trends that are altering sort of the locations and preferences of people, firms, and reconceiving the link between economy shaping to placemaking and social networking. It's kind of bringing all these things together. Brookings Institute, if anybody's interested, has written a couple of really good pieces on what innovation districts are and how they should be deployed. I think this town of Seaford and all of Western Sussex would really benefit from an innovation district, and that's what we intend to do. Moving forward, so how do you start building the kit of parts of an innovation district? We need innovative drivers and educators. So the core of the entire campus will center on research and medical institutions. So we are looking at repurposing the site from just purely retail to bring in some institutions. Co-working, which I'll touch on briefly. Startups, entrepreneurs focused on developing technologies, products, and services, as well as a highly specialized, some small batch manufacturing. Right off the bat, this is sort of hot off the press that Delaware Technical Community College is committed to build workforce training at this site. We're really excited to work with them, and they're going to be an anchor that we sort of build around as we move forward. I couldn't think of a better partner to reposition this entire site for. What types of programming? This has not been announced yet, but we've had countless meetings. They have 2 strong programs that they want to launch with. One is comprehensive healthcare training. That'll include credentials in the areas of certified nursing assistants, clinical medical administration, EKG technicians, phlebotomy technicians, and patient care techs. They have tons of data that backs up why they want to launch this program in Sussex. They think there's a huge market and demand for it, and that'll also lead into a potential healthcare partner as well. Another component, which I'm really excited about, is industrial training programs. So both OSHA production technicians and welding. And if anybody's watching the news, and I wear multiple hats along with the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, we're seeing light industrial really pick up steam all over the United States, not just here. And I think Western Sussex is really well positioned to capitalize on that. And I can tell you, when site selectors are looking for locations, when they see a 2-year training program that's ready to retool workforce, that gets them going. So I think this could really play nicely into that concept. And then innovation cultivator. That's something that I pride myself in. Again, a little bit of my background as an architect. I worked for years for a company called WeWork, and I built spaces like this all over the country. This will be anchored by the Mill as well, which is a company that I own and operate. Right now, we exist in Wilmington, and I'll give some more details about what we do. But I see the Mill as kind of a front door for the community as well. It's a public, it's a private business, but it welcomes public businesses to be a part of it, or private business to be a part of it, and interact potentially with some of the university components. I see us as kind of the glue of bringing the whole campus together. So the Mill, I opened it on April 1st of 2016. I remember it because everybody thought it was a joke. So co-working has risen in recent times around the nation. People who work out of co-work spaces report that they are more engaged, more motivated, more satisfied, and feel more successful. They network organically and meet new friends. Most importantly, 89% surveyed reported that they were happier in a co-working space. I could go on and on about co-working. I'm obsessed with it. I will just give some of the stats of the Mill. Since our opening in 2016, we started in 13,000 square feet. In our first anchor location, we're now in a little north of 90,000 square feet. And we also have a second location in North Wilmington that's around 25,000 square feet. Anchoring this location, we're starting at 20, and we have room to expand, and it'll kind of be the conference rooms and support systems for some of the university components. Neighborhood building amenities. So as we reposition the site, I don't like to think of retail as pure retail when we're building an innovation district. It's sort of what retail will drive innovation at the site and collaborate well with the universities and also a healthcare component. This will range from medical offices to grocery stores, restaurants, bars, and entertainment. I'm a big believer in experiential entertainment retail, particularly as we have students repositioning and want to be part of that. But core to all of this would be a coffee shop. I've already had numerous conversations with several coffee shop operators. And full disclosure, I also own a coffee bar in Wilmington that, if nothing else pans out, we will open one ourselves. It's called Fair Cafe. Retail that's currently being pursued, bowling. So given the former success of Seaford bowling lanes, we would love to bring a new concept as an amenity to all the other institutions that are involved. That's something that we're pretty committed to. We're open to operators, and we're looking for that now. I've had several calls with operators, and we'll continue that process. Retail and restaurants. Again, I mentioned the coffee shop. I will also note that we've already started working with Sal's Pizzeria, as I think Sal's phenomenal. He's been a great resource to me as I've moved through this process. We will work with his existing location, help him to expand, or help him to relocate on the campus. We're very committed to that. We're also extending that to the Great Wall Chinese food, and hopefully, and we're going to work with some of the other operators and tenants on the site as well. That's going to be a little bit of a back and forth dialogue, but those two have committed to wanting to stay. A grocer. We believe that would help some of this. We've had a couple conversations with grocers. They're a harder anchor tenant to land. I think as we start bringing some of these institutions, I think the site will become more appealing to those type of operators. And then again, this is just a start. We're open to other concepts on the site, but I want it to play well with the idea of an innovation district. Then connecting to the broader community. The site design is going to include public spaces for gathering that exemplify and stimulate new and higher levels of connectivity, collaboration, and innovation. Again, that's putting my planner's hat on. I think that when you nail a site plan and nail a layout that's walkable, it feels human scaled versus car centric, what you see today, it'll attract the right kind of retail that adds to this campus feel. And then collaborative and diverse. So overall, the site should feel collaborative in nature, again, giving the tenants that are in the mix. I think that'll help expand and bring new tenants into the fold. That'll help make social spaces that are essential. The image we show here is a co-working space that I'm a big fan of, and I could easily see us have an indoor-outdoor vibe that looks like that, kind of embracing the rural nature of all of Seaford, but also having a fun sort of social aspect to it. And walkable and bikeable. I mean, it's 22 acres, it's massive, it's all asphalt now. Having safe paths for biking is pretty easy to do in the planning process now, and that's one other way to connect with the surrounding community. All right, as we dive, there we go. Diving to the site, this is off of our 3D model diagram. I mentioned, if you look to the west, there's Dollar Tree, Sal's, Great Wall of Chinese, the Rite Aid, and the buildings in the rear are relatively unoccupied except for one tenant in Tabernacle Church, which is somewhere in the middle. It's not labeled on this drawing, sorry about that. We've done a property conditions assessment now. We've had enough time to get through the building. We've had a couple, we're still waiting on all the full results, but a lot of the buildings, which I don't think will come as a big surprise, are in pretty bad condition. A few of them are just completely open to the elements. Basically starting from the Great Wall Chinese restaurant to the east, there's several holes in the roof in that direction. The bowling alley's in surprisingly good condition. Yeah. I think we could preserve a lot of the bowling lanes as we repurpose the site. The buildings in the back half, the building to the northeast of this drawing is in really bad disrepair. There's a green roof growing that's not intentional. But to the northwest of the site, there was a recent gym that was put in, and that space is in phenomenal condition. But looking at what we would clear off first, those back buildings, we are slated to start a demolition plan off the property conditions assessment. We found that it didn't fully align with the overall site plan, and we want to start repurposing it. Those will be the first to go. And then I mentioned Sal's and Great Wall Chinese. We will stabilize a wall there. We're doing structural drawings as we speak, and then look to demo everything to the east of those buildings. And this is a great way for us to phase in. And I show the Dollar Tree westernmost portion because there's some vacancy there that we could also transfer tenants to if needed, just to make sure that everything's stabilized and we're not completely kicking out tenants that don't want to leave just yet. And that'll provide sort of a starting point of working some corridors through. Again, this is incredibly preliminary. I want to harp on that. The architects we hired asked to not show anything just yet because they didn't feel comfortable, but I wanted to show something. This is a start. We will be back, but we want to break up. There is an easement the city has with utilities right where that road goes from east to west, and right now it goes underneath a portion of one of the buildings, which is odd. So we're going to clean that up and use that easement as a public right-of-way to get traffic through the site and also make a walkable street in the middle of it. And then we want to cut a lane down the middle to, again, just break up the site a little bit, make it a little bit more walkable, embrace the Rite Aid, and we'll continue to grow the concept from there. So that's where we are today. Again, we bought this a month ago. We're working full steam. We've engaged with several civils. We have not signed them up yet, but we've had planners that are already working on this. I have actually 2 different firms working on it in parallel, working on the concepts and different options. So this will continue to evolve. And that being said, we at 9th Street Development believe that a design that's based with community feedback in mind is successful because that'll be our audience and our clientele. So I have an RFID code. If you guys want to scan, you can, or follow the link. It's a SurveyMonkey link at 9SDC-Nylon-Shopping Center. And again, if you just use your phones, you can post comments and give us feedback. We will be monitoring that. I have a staff member that looks at that every week. So that's our presentation. And any questions for me?
Well, it's, I
it's
don't
a
know
lot.
anybody in the room that hasn't wanted or desired something to happen with the shopping center. This is probably the biggest thing that's happened in our community, and as we've talked multiple times, even the governor you know, this has been something that everybody's wanted, and I do believe your company, you were the right person for the job at this time. You're thinking well beyond any of us could ever imagine on this property. The timing's great, and the governor was incredibly supportive to Seaford. The council has stepped up and have worked a lot of hours, a lot of meetings getting ready for this, so we're super excited. I do want to open it up and ask if the council has any questions. Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you. I mean, this is more than anything I could imagine. It's awesome, and willing to partner with the community, be a part of the community is just outstanding. So, thank you. I mean, it's a big project.
It is.
Huge, and as you talked about, it could potentially continue to evolve. But with that being said, when do you foresee like site work to begin, demolition to begin? If you could kind of put it like a little bit of a time frame around that.
Yes, so right now, and again, I've done enough construction and development over the years that I know schedules always slip, but we plan, with our property conditions assessment and we've already begun a portion of the demo drawing, so I do see demo starting within the next 4 to 6 months. We have several projects of shifting tenants around. That'll take some time. But the anchor tenants that I mentioned, namely Del Tech and the mill, I would like to be breaking ground on their buildings by the end of 2023. We have some potential for outside subsidy. It's not nailed down yet. That would have some timelines tied to it, where the whole project will need to be finished by 2026.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councilman McCoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Herrera, I think you're the most popular guy in town now. Appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. Just two structural questions from me. I looked at the plans briefly. I'm curious, in your experience or preference, do you prefer one-story, two-story, multiple-story structures, or do you have any vision for that this early in the project?
I tend to favor 2 to 3 story structures, particularly for the institutional buildings. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you pull them close together in that capacity as we showed, it gives a human scale, like walkable feel, and it'll kind of shelter. A lot of the shopping centers you see throughout the United States are these one-story sprawling buildings with parking in the front, and there's a big planning movement to move away from that to pull density. I don't foresee anything going above 3 stories, though.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you. That was a comment, and I really appreciate your perspective and vision on this. I think some of the concern that I've heard from the community is Seaford's not Wilmington, Seaford's not other cities and towns. We are our own area. We are unique. There are things that we like, that we don't like, that we're going to appreciate. And the fact that you want to embody this to meet the needs of the community, I greatly appreciate that. I just want to thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think the big challenge from a design perspective will be to blend those institutional concepts with some community amenities, as I call them, that everybody want to be a part of.
Okay. If there are no other questions from council,
I have one more.
Yes,
If
Councilman
you don't
King.
mind. It kind of a light bulb went off when Councilman McCoy asked about the layering. I know in Middletown, they're really successful with taking older shopping centers and turning them into like villages. Mm-hmm. Do you foresee any type of apartment or living space on the 2nd or 3rd story of that area?
So short answer is yes, but in phase 1, we're going to work on the institutional buildings. Okay. But we've already talked about a phase 2, and I do think innovation districts, when successful, have a mixed use presence, right? It just gets that 24-hour sort of lifespan of an area where it's never desolate at certain times of the day. Sure. It's always active. Awesome. And I think housing can help that.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, with that, again, Rob, thank you so much. Again, Rob's going to be back in the next couple of meetings, or certainly on a regular basis. We're going to get updates from him. We are going to take a pause of 5 minutes to allow Rob to leave. I realize the news media is here and wants to interview him, so we'll allow him time to leave. I realize some of you did not come for the rest of the city council meeting. It doesn't hurt our feelings. I realize this is an important deal to our town, so don't feel guilty if you leave. We understand. So we're going to pause. So if anybody wants to leave, now would be that time. We want to thank everybody for coming out. Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's freaking awesome.
All rise.
Yeah, man, thank you, man. I appreciate that, yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's what we're here.
Yes, you did. That's right.
Well, you got my number, right? Yeah. What's up, man?
If you send it to Councilman King, then just go that route. That way we'll not do any printing. Whatever route you choose to follow, it should be a good service. This is my landlord, he asked well too. It has to be continued. All right, we're going to call our meeting back to order. It's kind of hard to pull it all back together after that big announcement.
No.
It's good stuff, so.
Drop the mic, it's a little different.
Yeah. Yes. I failed to ask if we had any correspondence. I apologize.
We do not.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go on to new business number 2, and I'll call up Mr. Derbyshire, our city engineer, and Mr. Mears, Mr. Ben, all of the dream team.
Mayor, council, thank you for having us tonight. I'm going to speak specifically on some improvements to the water system that we've been working on, namely 3 projects, the Delaney well evaluation, an update to the city's water model, and also some preliminary planning work we've done for the nylon well. Where do we do our presentation?
Tricia's got it.
Oh, she got it? Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off with talking about the Delaney well. I trust you all are aware that the facility was taken offline in the midpoint of 2021 due to radium-226 and 228 levels that were just slightly above the maximum contaminant level. GMB was contracted to look into options as far as to provide treatment for that system, as well as look at other ways that we could offset that capacity not being available with discontinued use of that well. We put together a feasibility study, which we presented in October of 2021. Within that report, we looked at treatment for the well, a new well in the Minokan Aquifer at a new site, and a new well in the Columbia Aquifer at a new site. Just to give some background to council, so all the city's wells that the city has currently are all in the Columbia Aquifer, which is the surficial aquifer. Primarily the constituent that's can potentially be a source of concern is nitrogen, which the city obviously has to monitor that. And that is also a constituent that was present in the Delaney well. However, it is below the maximum contaminant level. So that's been tracked all along. With regard to the new well in the Minokan Aquifer option, we did consider drilling a new well at the Delaney site into the confined aquifer, whereas your current well is in the unconfined aquifer. However, the challenge is with the Minokan Aquifer, it's a much lower yielding aquifer, so you don't have nearly the capacity. And normally, municipalities that have wells in the Minokan Aquifer, usually you have to have several wells to achieve the amount of water volume that you need. And obviously with the with the Delaney site, it's a very small site. I think it's only 100 foot by 100 feet. And then also with the Minokan Aquifer, you're going to, without a doubt, run into iron and manganese. So you have to implement treatment specific for that, those contaminants. And that's going to require a much larger area. So in the approach that we took in looking at the Minokan Aquifer new site, that would be more if the city were to construct a facility remote to that site whereby you would have several wells and you would ultimately have a well field and you would have a much larger facility that you would continue to add wells to and expand that treatment facility. And we also did look at the option of drilling a well at the existing site in Minokan Aquifer and then using a blending approach whereby you would take water from the Columbia Aquifer and from the Minokan Aquifer and blend them so that you could reduce the concentration of the radium. However, there's too many unknowns with regard to the concentration of iron in the Minokan Aquifer there. You'd have to do a test well because it may not even be feasible to blend, because even with blending, the iron still may be too high. So with the 3 options we looked at, the treatment option was ion exchange, and with ion exchange it's very similar to what you see in a lot of homeowners use for the removal of iron. There's a resin that's used that specifically targets the pollutants of concern. And under that approach, usually you use a treatment scheme whereby you blend, so you treat only a portion of the flow from that well, and then you obviously you would remove all the radium, and then you would blend it so so that the water that was produced was within spec. One of the challenges with treatment is that obviously there's a salt brine that's created whereby you have radium that's going to be concentrated that you need to discharge of. To make it economical at all, we couldn't afford to haul that waste off site. You would have to discharge it into the sewer. So we did talk to Denrec about that feasibility. It definitely was an option. It was something that we could continue to explore them, but if we were to go down that route, you would likely end up with requirements at your wastewater treatment facility to monitor that. But I just will clarify that the concentration that we would ultimately be discharging to the treatment facility as far as entering the facility would be less than the MCL for radium in drinking water, because obviously Delaney well was producing approximately 25% of the water for the city over the year 2020. So if you figure that you've got, a quarter of the water blended, with the water that's fed to the community and then enters the collection system, it would basically be, cutting 1/4. As far as cost, the overall project cost for the treatment option was $1.8 million for total project costs. For the new well in the Minokan Aquifer, that would be $6.3 million. So obviously it's considerable. And then a new well in the Columbia Aquifer, we had estimated at $1.8 million. So with all that information, there really wasn't anything. It was somewhat inconclusive as far as what was the best fit for the city. And then one of the things that we felt was important to push forward with and complete was an update on the city's water model to better understand how the location of potentially a new well within the city system would impact the system and where we're best situated. And so with that, I'm going to let Ben Hearn talk a little bit about the water model update we did.
Yeah, so I guess good evening. At a high level, the previous model was not to the level it needed to be for the analysis we wanted to do, I guess in simple terms. In order to analyze potential well locations, whether bringing this well back online, that well offline makes sense, we wanted to update the model with all the data that the city's collected over the last couple of years in their GIS system. That means we would have updated everything in terms of, age, size, material, when it was installed, as well as looked at, the demands throughout the city. We looked at all the city's records of placing demands through the city. We also the city gave us hydrant tests throughout the city, and with that data, we created a calibrated model, which basically simulates everything in the real world. We can say, if you turn that pipe off, what's it gonna do over here? We've got pretty good consistent accuracy with, data that we had received in the hydrant test to be confident in that type of data. And the statistic we look at in this specific scenario of looking at different well locations is age of the water in the system. There's a correlation of age and water quality. As the water gets older, your chlorine residual decreases or equals a lesser quality of your water. And we'll get into the more results of that in a couple slides, but essentially we saw that the age of the west side was improved with bringing a well on that side of the city. If we can go to the next one. So what's on your screen here is basically, is a summary of the water allocation permit. That's basically what the city, or the state of Delaware permits the city to withdraw from the aquifer every day. Or, well, what's on the screen is what the wells are permitted to withdraw. The permit also accounts for what you can withdraw per day, per month, and per year. The total allocation availability, if you sum all those wells up, is 5,100 GPM. That's not exactly what your wells can produce, but it's what they're permitted to produce. When you look at what was the existing scenario before Delaney got taken out of service. Nylon well is already out of service, which we'll get into in a second. So your total use of allocation was 4,300 GPM. When you take Delaney well out of service, you'd be now down to 3,200 GPM. So one of the scenarios that we'll get into is talking about bringing Nylon back into service, which takes you up in allocation or use of your allocation to 4,000 GPM. We think that's a good thing for two reasons. Not only you're bringing it closer, to what you had prior to Delaney going out of service, but it also gives the city more flexibility in terms of, we have a well go down, we have the ability to still produce the water that's obviously needed to, give the constituents their drinking water every day, so. What's the next slide? So Chris is gonna talk a little bit more about, I think I went one too far. Chris is gonna talk about nylon well status and, where that stands so far.
Yep, and so obviously with the loss of Delaney well, obviously the interest was in, well, how about we put nylon well back in service? Obviously from a regulatory standpoint, I mean, there's no reason it couldn't be put into service. However, it's been out of service for a number of years, specifically because it's just not a well that's desirable to operate with the way that it's been constructed. I mean, it was built back in, almost 1960. It's a below ground structure. That's where the pump motor is located. That's where all the chemical feed equipment is located. So it's just not ideal. It's also located, in the median there on Nylon Boulevard. So as far as putting that well back into service, we looked at the idea of, well, it's already a well that's permitted. We knew we would have to rehab the well. What can we do with this site here to, make it more current, where it's more, accessible for the operations? And just given the location, to construct a building above grade here is just not conducive to do so. I mean, you've got where the roadways cross, you've got some site distance considerations whereby you wouldn't be able to see. It's just very narrow, not ideal to construct a new, invest a lot of money there at that location specifically. So we in addition to the work we had done for Delaney, we had prepared another cost estimate with the approach of rehabilitating this well, however, constructing a new treatment station, as the city calls them, down the street, and about 1,750 feet away. And that option, we would have to construct a raw water main. At this location here, we would end up converting the well into a submersible type well, whereby we would have a pitless adapter, and the well would be pulled with a boom truck, the actual well motor itself and the pump. We would, however, have an electrical cabinet that would be located in the median here. At the other property, we would construct the water treatment station, which would include the chemical feeds and the piping that would tie into the distribution system. This is just a schematic view to show that location down there West Poplar. As far as cost, we had estimated approximately $1.7 million for this option. Obviously, a significant portion of that cost is just the raw water transmission piping to get from the existing well down to this new location. 1,750 feet of pipe. I think it was better than $500,000. But in that regard, it's comparable to the price that we had developed for construction of a new well in the Columbia Aquifer that was somewhere in town. Because here, some of the costs we're saving obviously is drilling a new well and whatnot. I'm trying to think if there's a few more things I wanted to add there. If we'll go on the next slide. I don't have any more. So looking at the next steps, obviously at the meeting back on December 13th, the resolution was approved by council to submit for a planning grant with the idea of moving forward with a planning study and preliminary design related to to improvements to nylon well, and specifically with the PER, we always have to look at a do-nothing option. The other option would be to redevelop the well and install the raw water main, and then with the new treatment station that we've just discussed, as well as the other consideration would be permitting a new well at presumably the same location where I just showed that other treatment station. So with that, I mean, I'll open up the questions. I don't know, Burley, if you had anything you wanted to mention in the presentation?
Any questions from Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions, and I apologize, I'm probably going to jump around a little bit.
That's fine.
Just so for my clarity. So you talked a little bit about the treatment option, and the total cost was around 1.8 million. What does that look like as far as the yearly expense? At 1.8 million, how did you define that number? And is it broken down? What would the cost be like per year? Because it's something you're gonna have to do the entire life of that well if you're gonna use it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was worked out to a $21,000 a year additional O&M cost to the city, above and beyond what you're doing right now for Delaney as it
Okay.
is. So basically, that would be like an adder to what the city's already spending for Delaney.
Okay. And now I want to jump over to the nylon well. So you talked a little bit about the treatment station, right? So constructing that, where would that be located at?
So right now, the city has properties down here along the golf course near West Poplar. So I think that's the location.
It's south of Ben Sermon's
Yep.
house, if you're familiar with
Yep.
Mr. Sermon's house.
Yep.
So when we purchased the golf course, there is I'm going to call it a very long, narrow, triangular-shaped piece of land that's there south of Mr. Sermon's. So this would be on that northern end of that piece, because that's the widest portion of it. And our engineers have looked at that, done some initial layout of the facility so they could get the treatment works on there. Mr. Derbyshire, the treatment works would be in a building about 20 by 30, is that correct?
Yeah, it's not very large.
And it would look like some of the other treatment facilities that we have, like a low one-story metal building, so we can get all of our soda ash feed systems.
Well, I wonder, just throwing it out, instead of having it kind of stick out, is there a way to maybe construct that building so it blends in? Same concept, right? Same idea, but instead of a metal building sticking out in that area, in that community, would it make more sense to try to, the exterior of that building blended in? And then the second point, would that be any disruption, like noise or anything, to the people that live within that proximity?
It was, so as far as the facility and what it would look like, I mean, we really hadn't gotten that far. The next step is to look into PER, to prepare the PER, and the PER will in fact confirm that is the best option for the city. And if that is the recommended option, the selected option, then we can look at that then. But I mean, as far as the building, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to do pretty much. I mean, I'm really more concerned about what's inside the building. As far as the exterior,
But
it's
aesthetically, we've done
more
several things, so an
Yeah.
But I
example
get that,
I'll
but the
give you-
people that live around it, they may not be.
No,
right?
it's a great point,
You know what I
Councilman.
mean?
Yeah, so to that point, as far as the disruption, I mean, obviously, it would be a construction project. If it were to just be a treatment station there and actually not, constructing a well there, just a treatment station, I mean, it wouldn't be, it's not an overly large facility. I mean, you're probably active construction work on site, you're probably 4 months. I mean, because when we say treatment, I mean, really, the city isn't really doing much in the way of treatment. It's more just, you're just adding some chemicals to the water, and then you're just putting in the distribution system.
Okay. And the last question, a test well, drilling like just test spots. What's the cost associated with coming in and maybe drilling some potential sites for a well? What would something like that cost for somebody to come in and just like drill test spots?
It's, the cost of the well, I mean, it's fairly costly, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the cost is all associated with the whole gamut of testing.
Right.
I'm gonna say, I can circle back, confirm a number, but I'm gonna say you're probably close to between $30,000 and $50,000, I think.
To come in and do it,
For
drill a
a
test hole?
test well, yeah. I mean, probably like a 4-inch test well.
Yeah.
And, do the full spectrum of testing. I mean, there's things that we can maybe do to lessen that, to make it more economical, but I mean, I know most of the test wells that we've done, if it's what I'll call a full-blown test well, they're pretty expensive.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
Certainly.
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions from council? Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city manager and I talked about this a little bit, and we talked about the hesitance of DENREC to issue a new permit for a well in the Columbia Aquifer because it's an unconfined aquifer, right? So in your feasibility study, well, let me go back. The Nylon well's 63 years old, right? So has there been any study, or is it going to be part of the study, how much production and what the lifetime of that well is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, with the improvements that were proposed, it would be a full redevelopment of the well. But, I mean, that's definitely something if you know, we move forward with the project, we're going to have to look at a lot of the detailed records that the city had from, you know, previous pumping of the
Right.
well, and, you know.
So when you say redevelopment, you're just talking about, well,
There's a series of
usually when I-
jetting of the well,
Right.
and there's chemical treatment options and all that, as well as to clean the screen and
Right.
to make sure the media is.
But you have a
clean.
63-year-old screen,
Correct.
right? So I would be much more in favor of having a well at the new site rather than investing money in a 63-year-old well, even though you're going to save a little bit of money here.
Mm-hmm.
But then what's the likelihood of you being able to get a permit for a well in an unconfined area? Because
It's definitely scrutinized more.
right, if you go down, what's the Minokan, 500 feet?
200, yeah, 180, 200.
Okay. Because I know there's wells around here out at River, domestic wells that are 400 feet deep, you know, in order to get non-irony water, you know, decent water, but they don't produce as much either. So that's going to be more expensive. And then if you had to have the well at the new location, would you need a larger footprint in order to fit all the treatment, the iron removal, all the other, you know, mechanical things that you would need to put in the building?
Yeah, I think the concept that's been developed thus far would be, you know, with that site and that treatment station would be specific to a well that didn't require iron and manganese treatment. So if we're looking at like green sand filtration, you know, then that site that's shown before you right now is likely not going to be large enough to accommodate that.
So,
Like I said too, because then also if you invest in that, you're going to want to invest in that facility and be able to have and make it expandable, and you know, to have other wells in that location. So you essentially have a well field of several wells.
right, so basically you're counting on being able to use the unconfined aquifer or the old well.
Well, within the PR, we can also look at, you know, what other aquifers are present. Are there other aquifers that are below the Minokan that are possible to produce, you know, a raw water that requires minimum treatment? And then what is the yield? You know, what are we looking at? You know, a much larger well, deeper well, and see how that plays in. I mean, and then with regard to the PER, there's also, you know, non-economic factors that are taken into consideration in addition to, you know, the present worth cost analysis. So, I mean, there's many times that we have PERs where it's the non-economic factors come into place such that even the option with the lowest present worth isn't the recommended option. So I think that's, some of those things would be considered, you know, as far as the permitting challenges, and, you know, and the same thing with the existing well, just the uncertainty, you invest this money in this well now, you know, what is the likelihood for it to be able to serve for, you know, 20, 30, 40 more years?
Yeah, that's my concern, is that
Well, that's the whole, I
We're
think that's the whole
dealing with
basis for doing the PER, is to make sure that, you know, do a much, I mean, the work that we've done thus far has been more planning level work, very preliminary. You know, with the PER, we really get into a lot of detail, a lot of those specifics. that would hopefully, fulfill, or satisfy all the questions you have.
So, one more. The Delaney well and the nylon well are not that far apart. And you have radium in the Delaney well, and it's in the same aquifer.
Correct. I don't know off the top of my head what you've had with, in the past when you were operating the nylon well, whether there was any radium that was found. I don't think so.
This is the first we heard.
And about halfway in between is our Arbutus well, which is our highest production well. Have you seen any contaminant show up in that well?
No, it's
Radium
not
contaminant.
No.
It's an oddball
It's just-
location for the contaminant.
I mean, we could test it now and it could be gone, but
Right.
it's just something we haven't gone down there.
Yeah, well, I think that would be, it would be from myself, living in the area, it would be a confidence issue. I mean, not that we don't doubt, not that we doubt you, but if you said, oh, well, we tested it and there's absolutely no radium now.
That's why it's all.
I mean,
down.
that's like,
Yeah, and that was
That's
council's,
kinda-
that was council's kind of directive to us when we found this. There were some things we could have done, but because of public confidence, the council made the decision to shut the well down. And the Director of Public Works and his staff have been monitoring this. The radium contamination has been at low levels in the well for many years.
Right, but never over the.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah, I mean, we see it in trace elements, but in your testing of the other two wells, you don't see those trace elements currently. It's an oddball thing. I don't know if that helps with your concern about that subject, but.
no, I'm just, moving forward, if the nylon well turns out to have radium that's escalating, and we're putting all our eggs in this basket, plus, I just am kind of concerned that we might be leaning towards a different option in a confined aquifer, even though you have more treatment, possibly. If you could punch through the Minokan aquifer and get down 400 feet and find decent water, which is what most people have to do out in the country, out in the developments outside of town, then that's maybe what we should consider.
City Manager, how does this look rolling forward? When does this come back through to this group?
So over the next few months, 6 to 8 months, the engineering team and staff will be conducting the preliminary engineering report that council authorized at the last meeting for us to proceed with. So out of that, some more solid concrete recommendations as well as an opinion of probable cost will be developed by the city engineer. So that'll come back. There'll be some alternatives presented as to, what they think is the best alternative. I think one of the things Mr. Derbyshire said needs to be done, we obviously need to find out when the last time this well was run, what good records we have. Were we testing for radium at that point? Do you remember, Mr. Mears, the last time this well was actually operated?
Not off the top of my head, but it's over 5 years.
Okay, so it's not that it hasn't been operated for 25 years. We can look at what records we have. That can potentially give us more confidence about what the history of the water production was. We can look into some of these we can advance this engineering opportunity and bring back with more certainty
In the spring.
a recommendation. Spring to the summer, does that seem
Okay.
appropriate?
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Any other questions?
I just have one, just to kind of echo what Vice Mayor Henderson said. I mean, at the end of the day, cost is important, but not at anyone's safety, right? So, I mean, I concur 100%. If we need to go deeper to see what that looks like, then that's what we need to do.
Thank you all so much for what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Understood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next we'll call up Mrs. Hickey, Ms. Hickey, to look at the innovation grant.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So, back in August, we were encouraged by James Wilson, who is the Executive Director of Bike Delaware, to apply for this Cycling Infrastructure Innovation Grant. which is run through the Delaware Bike Council. It's an opportunity for municipalities, strictly for municipalities and county offices in Delaware. The grant is to fund the project ideas to make family-friendly bicycle network improvements that will enable more people to safely get where they want to go using a bicycle. And the project that we were encouraged to pursue is the intersection shown on the screen, which is famously known as the Dunkin' Donuts intersection, rather than read all of this. So just a quick overview is of the intersection. State Route 20 is an east-west arterial connecting to the highway. We all know the geometry is pretty straight. Doesn't have very sharp turns, which what they concurred can cause people to, or encourage people to go at higher speeds than above the speed limit. Crossing is unsafe. There are not crosswalks at every single location, but very important because we have 4 schools that are within walking distance from this intersection, as well as local businesses. And then State Route 20 is designated as a bike route, but does not have any dedicated bike facilities, such as like striped bike lanes, protection at the intersection, or a shared use path. And unfortunately, there have been 2 fatalities at this intersection over the past 1.5 years. So the grant that that we submitted for was for a feasibility study of the concept design that you see here. This was first created by a company called Tool Design and a member, Dick Van Veen, back in December 2021, and was presented at an online webinar hosted by DelDOT. And then you can see the priorities for that webinar was to focus on this intersection, to reduce vehicle speeds, provide safer pedestrian walkways, and create protected bike lanes for cyclists. And then this is just a closer, very loose design concept that they came up with back in December of 2021, just kind of focusing just specifically on the intersection. And then the grant is a total of actually $21,500 and would be used for Tool Design to research the feasibility of the concept shown. The research will include traffic data collection, together new AM and PM weekday peak hour vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle turning movement counts at the intersection, including all legs at a time when school is in session. They will also be collecting any relevant prior traffic impact studies, prior crash analysis data, pedestrian crossing delayed data collection, and right-of-way and researching right-of-way constraints and impacts. I just want to reiterate, because I know seeing a drawing like this is a lot, but this grant is just specifically to see if anything is feasible, is the feasibility. It's not, creating a plan of action, and any action that is taken, even through this grant, this is all state maintained roads, so this will all have to go through DelDOT as well. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions.
All right, any questions for Ms. Hickey? Mr. Anderson?
Sure.
Thank you, Katie. It's pretty imaginative.
Yes.
In my limited brain here, I can't envision all the traffic that's going through that roundabout. I'm hopeful that as this works itself out, that it'll be a little bit broader vision, because I can't envision however many thousands of 10,000 cars a day.
Yes. Well, and one of their goals, not to interrupt, but one of their goals is to essentially slow the traffic down in that intersection.
Well, that's gonna slow it.
Yes. For sure.
I think what was
Mostly because
interesting,
people will be confused.
I participated in this call back in 2021 when they presented this idea, and I sent it to the city manager because I never thought something so big as a two-lane circle there. But what has changed on that highway, as we all know, is people don't go straight anymore. They turn left at Dunkin' Donuts, which has created a different traffic flow than that was designed. But it is truly not bikeable. We all know that. And at that time, they were talking about doing something differently before someone gets hurt, which it hasn't happened. So I think this is a great step to look at it. It's very, like you say, it's out of the, it's shopping center big, right? So
Yeah,
we're
they call
going
that,
big this year,
They
right?
call
So-
it a peanut-shaped roundabout.
Right, right.
So, if I could, one more question. Do you have examples of somewhere where this is in existence, it's been installed?
In the webinar, they drew from two particular cities. One was actually in Denver, Colorado. The other one was in, there was a town in Indiana, forgive me, I don't remember the name, where they have over 100, I think 140 roundabouts in that state. And it works, they said it, you know, it works very well. I don't know, I believe the concept of just a single roundabout was, during that webinar, was just not well enough, I guess, in conjunction with our right-of-ways and stuff to have a single one, so that's what the idea of that came about
Well,
as.
if you could get that information to
Sure.
us. I'd really like to see, I may not be able to visit, but I'd like to see it somewhere where it works, especially the peanut shape, not, I mean, we all drive around in Maryland and there's roundabouts in
Yes.
Maryland, and there's more and more popping up in the county all around, so I'm interested to see how this particular one works, where there's no left turns at all, it's all right turns. And it'll definitely calm traffic. I mean, several years ago, we recalled the traffic calming measures that were proposed down in front of the middle school, and that turned out to not to be so practical. So I just want to make sure that we're barking up the right tree.
I can certainly reach out to Tool Design, as well as Mr. Van Veen, to see if they can give us any specific examples of where this current
would be
concept
great.
is being used.
Other questions, Councilman McCoy?
Yeah, just to dumb it down for myself here. So this would eliminate the left-hand turn going to Dunkin' Donuts. If you'd have to loop all the way back around the roundabout, and in theory, there'd be one entrance in Dunkin' Donuts.
Shown on this drawing, yes, but you do have to understand, this is a very loose concept that they first designed, but that's what this study is going to do. Because if they get more traffic data, especially if they get any more data now that Amazon has come in, now that our economic development has boosted, even since they have done this, that's what this funding and these studies will do, because at this point, this concept, when they come back to us after their studies, that may not be, a right-of-way for
And I agree,
the right
getting the study
concept.
done is viable. I'd be, for my own fascination, I'd be interested to see what it says, because having one entranceway, as you just said, it's gonna be slower to get there. There's not that much room for a drive-through as it is. I wonder if it's cause more congestion than what we're actually intending, but I'm curious to see what it says.
Yes.
Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it was a few months ago on the morning news, there's actually a city way bigger than this one, bigger population, way busier. Their entire city, other than one street, is a roundabout. It was incredible.
I saw that.
Did you see it on the
I
news?
saw it on the news.
So it'd be interesting if we could find out what that was, what that city, I can't remember, but I'll look it up. But it was incredible. The the entire program, the segment was on roundabouts, and it was incredible how they went in and the impact that it had as far as traffic safety.
Absolutely.
It was interesting at Representative Short's gathering last week, they were saying that New Jersey is moving away from roundabouts, they're taking them out. So I'm sure there's mixed results, so again, that's why we need to do a study and see what it's about, but I think everybody knows that intersection is a disaster right now, so.
And,
Can I
Yeah.
add
Yes, sir.
one thing?
Yes, sir.
It's history.
History.
When I was a boy, many years ago,
That's when the wheel was square, right?
before the wheel, actually. Stein Highway and Norman Eskridge Highway was the second busiest thoroughfare in the state behind Kirkwood Highway,
Right, wow.
back in the 60s and 70s.
I believe
So, with the slowdown in economic activity with the plant, it lost its volume temporarily. Now that we're coming back, we've got a huge economic development activity on the western side. There's all other kinds of activity going on. I welcome the feasibility study, but we got to get that right.
Yeah,
Amen.
yes.
amen.
And like I said, this is simply, like I said, a feasibility
Right.
study. It's nothing that's going to end up being
Right,
set
right.
in place.
Just to
This is probably
maybe
years
just
in
talk about this.
process.
The mayor participated in a webinar, and this came out of that. When we met with the folks with the cycling infrastructure grant and some representative of DelDOT, one of the big things that this second step in the engineering process is going to prove or attempt to prove is how much right-of-way has to be obtained, what has to be acquired. And they'll advance this design. I think we'd be wise, we know we have a problem at this intersection, so I think we'd be wise to participate in this process, if for nothing else. This intersection may not look like this in the future. There may be other techniques that can be brought to bear. The simple closing of entrances, combining of entrances, cross-access easements can go a long way to improving traffic safety. One of our big problems there at the Dunkin' Donuts intersection is people backing up into the intersection, creating problems, poorly marked crosswalks. So this being a step forward, I think what may come out of this, I think there may be benefit in pursuing this. Something the Economic Development Director and I talk about quite often. This is the northern limit of the DDD. The council made that change a couple years ago. And we've been talking about, that Front Street corridor. We've done the south end at Gateway Park, and we've made that much more pedestrian friendly. Does something like this at the northern end kind of give us both ends of that, and then we can work on the corridor in between to help revitalize that. Again, I think in all of this, when staff looked at it, this is a second step in a very preliminary, almost cartoon-like design process. We think we should move forward with this to see how the sausage is made out of this and see what we can come up with. Just one last comment for council. There's a transposition error in the agenda. I apologize. It should be 21.5, not 12.5.
Okay,
So just
thank you.
in the motion, yes, sir. Thank you.
And this is, just to clarify, this is not a matching grant. These are funds that would be given directly to us at no cost to the city.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make no motion, but Katie, question for you. It
Yes,
says
sir.
2022. Should that be that date right?
No, this is, we applied in August 2022, so that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion to approve the acceptance of the 2022 Cycling Infrastructure and Innovation Grant in the amount of $21,500 to conduct a feasible study for the Stein Highway / Bridgeville Highway intersection as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Any questions on the motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Mrs. Hickey.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, next we have the resolution adopting the Sussex County Multi-Jurisdictional All-Hazard Mitigation Plan Update. Wow. Mr. Bailey, sorry.
Evening.
So this is a 5-year update to the Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Plan. When we started working on this last spring, I participated in several meetings with the county and their client who authored the plan, with a majority of the other municipalities in the county all participating. And the idea of this plan, and we did it 5 years ago too, is to everyone be in agreement on how to mitigate these hazards if they occur. Hopefully we never have to use it, but there'll be a plan in place if so, and it will also assist in getting disaster assistance from the federal government and state. So that's basically what it is, and just looking for approval.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Bailey? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the resolution adopting the Sussex County, Delaware multi-jurisdictional all hazard mitigation plan update dated December 15, 2022 as official all hazard mitigation plan for the city of Seaford as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Bailey.
Good
Appreciate it
night.
very
Good night.
much.
Thanks.
All right, and next we have the Enterprise Fleet Agreement. Is the chief coming up for a brief discussion?
This is probably not the most exciting thing you've heard tonight, but last year, I believe it was March of last year, I came before council to ask to place an order through Enterprise for FY '23 vehicles in FY '22 because of delay. We're back here again this year. We still have not received those vehicles yet, so I'm asking now to order 4 more vehicles through Enterprise Lease in this current fiscal year that are not expected to come in until next fiscal year. If we don't, we may not be able to get those vehicles, and we're looking at an extended delivery time, probably sometime around September.
Okay.
I did break this down for you as well, if you want to look at the total cost that we currently have. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, any questions for the chief? Councilman McCoy?
The previous vehicles that we're doing,
Yes.
when are they coming in?
Well, I've been told that we should at least have one this month,
Okay.
and the other should be delivered sometime in February.
Okay.
We've had registration cards since August.
10-4.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to hear about the delay.
Yep. Other questions? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the 4 lease agreements with Enterprise Fleet Management for 2023 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles to be delivered in the FY 2024 budget as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
Councilman King, I'll second the
Okay,
motion.
thank you very much. Are any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous, Chief. Thank you very much. Okay, any old business?
No, sir, we have none.
Okay, reminder of meetings.
So we have the city planning session at the Nanticoke Senior Center on Locust Street, 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. on January 27th.
It's a Friday.
And that is a Friday, thank you. And then we have the city offices are closed on January 16th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up. And then just a reminder, municipal election this year will be April 15th, 2023, from 7 to 3. And so far, the only person we've had file is Councilman Santos has filed for reelection.
Okay.
That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to committee reports with Councilman Santos and Administration IT.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report has been submitted in its entirety. There were several inspections, there were several meetings that were done in the past few weeks. City staff made several inspections and responded to requests for information from the GGI builders and GMB for the renovations of 106 Spring Street. They have a punch list and they're working through it. They're expected to finish around February, March, and let the tenants begin their process. And they attended the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department after action report for the Harrington Street Fire event. They reviewed several documents regarding the IBW negotiation meeting. We are in the second draft of that contract. For the IT report, Garrick has been working on firewalls. They completed migration to new core switches. They've had troubleshooting issues with the virtual desktop infrastructure. They are working on the AutoCAD installation in the virtual environment. For the administration report or finance, they attended the contract negotiations with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, 126. They processed delinquent accounts last Friday for disconnects and generated bills for December's consumption. All other business is routine. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next up, Police and Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a complete report, but I'm going to summarize it because at the end of the fire department report, I'm going to invite Chief Wilson to come up and help explain some of the 2022 numbers. So I'm just going to give you the January calls for the new year. Under the fire responses, there are 22 calls as of yesterday, and that's 2.4 calls per day. And EMS, we have 104 calls for an average of 11.8 calls per day. Significant incidents on the 16th of December, we assisted Station 71 with a car fire that was upgraded to a structure fire. On the 20th, out of the city was a motor vehicle crash with an entrapment on Concord Road. On the 22nd, we had another assist with Station 81, residential fire. The 23rd was an assist with Blades again, motor vehicle crash with entrapment on Oakles Road. And on the 28th, there was a building fire on Cannon Road. That was an assist to Bridgeville. And on the first of the year, there was a motor vehicle crash with entrapment. This was in the city on Sussex Highway. And on the 8th of this month, also in the city was a residential electrical fire on Front Street. Apparatus, that's kind of an apparatus status. It's kind of a tongue twister there. Tower 87 is still out of service in Roanoke, still awaiting the insurance assessment or damage assessment. Engine 87.5 is out of service for damage repairs, and it's being repaired. Also, Engine 87.5, Tanker 87, and Brush 87 also completed their DOT checks. The last training was Wednesday, December 21st at Station 87, where they did the after-action review of the Harrington Street fire. 44 personnel were present. Did you have an opportunity to attend, or did you?
Yes, sir, I did
Okay.
attend.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. And I did send that out to various staff members.
Yes. So unfortunately, I was unable to attend because I was away from home. Under EMS, all 3 ambulances are in service. C87 had a safety inspection last week with a rear axle leak that was repaired. B87 is scheduled for a safety inspection for its annual, and A87 will go to Atlantic when it's able as for relief for its DOT inspection. There are 2 firefighter EMT positions open at this time. We have 2 applications in thus far, and it's going to stay open until January 15th. We have 1 lieutenant position open, and I'd like to thank the cooperation between the Seaford Police Department and the Seaford Fire Department for their participation in the active assailant training on Sunday, January 8th. there's other news and events, but I want to abbreviate this a little bit. Also, during this time, they've elected their officers for 2023. The president will again be Patrick Gaskin. Vice president will be Derek Adams. Secretary will be Ken Tull, and treasurer will be Jim Mitchell. Once again, our fire chief is John Mitchell. My sympathies, or John Wilson. I'm sorry. Deputy Chief Matt Reed, First Assistant Chief Ben O'Beer, and second and third assistant chiefs positions are open. So at this time, I'll call up Chief Wilson to. Do we have a chart up? Okay. All right. So in your packet, you have Seaford Volunteer Fire Department 2022 operations statistics, and there's a lot of numbers here, and I would like you to reiterate our call status and our position in the county before. I didn't want to steal that from you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving me a couple seconds here. I handed out to the city manager and council, our Vice Mayor Henderson, our stats from 2022. 2022 ended pretty significant for us. Our call load was up on fire side from 941 in 2021 to 1,023 in 2022 on the fire side. You see by the chart that's in there, there's a Excel chart that's married down to that. You'll see that all the green blocks in there are all the peak times for that months that we ran. As you can tell that also, if you correspond to the fire, there's a pie chart in there that it corresponds what our busiest call loads within that year was. And the top three for us in the fire side was motor vehicle accidents, emergency medical services responses, and automatic fire alarms are the top three calls that we respond on within this district. Of course, the city's a small part of the 77 square miles, but also within that, we're averaging probably 56% of the calls right here in the city alone, so on the fire side. On the EMS side, also had a record year, going from like 3,900 something to 4,220, I think it was, or something like that. I believe it was. So they're up to, with also the same thing within that chart. But you also see with that there are three big ones, were like 6 subjects, motor vehicle accidents, and I'm trying to think what the other one was. Transfers, or interfacility transfers. The reason the interfacility transfers are is because we have multiple medical places in here, and they get coded as that no matter what it is. So if they're going from like the cancer center to the hospital, or from a doctor's office, or from the pediatric center, or Mears Center to the hospital, that's all interfacility. So that's where we get a lot of them. But also is coded with that is all the nursing homes that we do respond to within the city, so that's a majority. So the EMS is even a higher percentage within the city limits that we respond in. So the numbers there are pretty much in front of you. I did explain that tomorrow night is our annual meeting where we get installed, but there will be a final report, and there'll be a few other stats that I'll share with the Vice Mayor to make sure that you had that stats too. The only thing I say is the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department, which is a combination fire department, it's career and volunteer, that is very busy right now. We're the second busiest emergency medical services unit in the county, and the busiest fire department in the county. So as the call load continues to increase, it also increases a lot more demand on the services for our volunteers and also our career staff.
Could I ask you to reiterate what we talked about in the meeting about 17% of your calls are false alarms?
Yep, 17% of our calls are false alarms. So that's broken down to automatic fire alarms in commercial, residential, and multifamily dwellings. But also that doesn't give you a true sense of that within that automatic fire alarm status, is that it could be broken down even further to versus untenanted cookings, smoke in the structure, steam, stuff like that are all true calls for the smoke detector to go off, versus something like faulty detector or a weather incident or something like that. So, but 17% of those calls are what we're responding on. I think the other stat was motor vehicle crashes compared to what was the percentage for motor vehicle crashes?
21?
21% on the fire side, but I think it was only 9% on the EMS side. So there's a difference there, but there's still big numbers for both of us on, 4,000 and 1,000 calls. So we're responding on a lot of those.
I want to thank you for putting this together. It takes a lot of work. I know you've got some tools that make it a little bit easier,
Yeah.
but it does
We,
help me understand.
We at the beginning of last year, we bought a program called emergency reporting. And what emergency reporting does is allows us to get our reports done on time by the officers to the NEFR system, which is required by us by the state, which is the National Fire Incident Reporting System. EMS is done on DEMERS, which is Delaware Emergency Management Research. So now that instead of us sitting there, counting reports, it automatically at the end of the month, at the end of the week, it generates us all this data that we could never do before. So this is the first year you'll see that, and as long as it goes, if we need to draw some type of data to prove something, such as mileage or response time or the day of the week, we can pull it up within seconds rather than digging through months and months of material to do that. So it's helpful for all of us.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. So I'll move on to Seaford Police Department. The chief has cut his reporting off to give us the year-end report through December 31st. So the numbers you'll see here are all 2022 numbers, or up to the end of last month. So I'll move down to criminal. All crimes there were 236 crimes, and you'll see the distribution of the crimes there under felony, misdemeanor, violations, and civil and other, for an 81% clearance rate. Still and above, it's dropped over the period, but it's still above average for their peers. Additional crime data below, in the below chart, there's a total of 27 complaints consisting of aggravated assault, burglary, fraud, indecent exposure, larceny, and weapons charges. So 6 of those crimes were felonies and 21 were misdemeanors. Under drug complaints, there were 16 drug complaints total, and you'll see the distribution down through there. Under traffic, there were 313 traffic contents, resulting in 87 citations and 10 warnings. There were 6 DUIs during the period, 4 alcohol and 2 drug-related, and 2 of those were crash-related. There were 4 injury accidents during the period, no fatal accidents during this period, 7 reportable and 13 non-reported. Under significant events, there's been some, you'll see about half a dozen enumerated events that I will say that is the chief here? There he is. The chief suggested that maybe we might give some public recognition to some outstanding work by some civilians. I'll read this portion just very briefly. On December 30th, a female reportedly almost drowns in the area of the residence at River Place. While responding, Seaford Police Department officers were advised the subject was near the water. Seaford Police Department arrived on the scene and observed the female shouting and stumbling about in the area of the Blaze Bridge as a group of men appeared to be trying to keep her away from the water and out of the roadway. The female advised she had been in the river and appeared to be under the influence of unknown substances. An ambulance arrived on the scene and transported the victim to Tidal Health. The male subjects advised that they lived at the apartments and had come downstairs to go to work when they heard someone yelling for help. The male subjects advised that they pulled her out of the water and called 911 for assistance. So far, they're anonymous folks, but I think the department knows who they are, and I'm hopeful that they'll be identified and commended for their heroism. So I will. The administration was busy with many meetings over the period, and under training. There was a field training officers course that was attended by PFC Cody Matthews, and there's future active attack and integrated response training that's going to be held. There's actually that's come and gone, right? That was the 7th and 8th. So. That was the same training that the fire department and many other agencies took place in, and there's actually some future training that's. Do you have a schedule for that? No. But there is future training for the active attack and integrated response instruction. So with that, I'll conclude the report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Councilman Holland, Code, Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with Parks and Recs. They made repairs at the concession stands, Rockman's Park fence, and the fence underneath the High Street Bridge. And they had one employee out on medical leave since 12/27, with expected return in February. And they have scheduled youth basketball practices and finalized game schedule for 6 through 9-year-olds and 10 to 13-year-olds, and have 8 teams in each league. And that concludes the report for Parks and Recs. And we will switch over to Code. As of now, they had issued permits, 417 issued in 2022, and so far 60 has been issued in 2023. And the rental license are underway and being scheduled for 2023. And East Park Business Center, Building 3 is complete, and Bel Air Single Family Danfield Drive, water and sewer installed, and base pavement is down. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Councilman McCoy with electric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last report, the crew have set a pole on South Phillips Street to separate services at 550 Rush Street. Dalton Hignott started his lineman training at DMEC. And they worked on Hurley Park Drive, blowing in the string to pull in the secondary wire. They also set a pole and security light for Colonial Gardens. Regarding the director, he had his meeting with Help Initiative about Chandler Street. Had a meeting with the engineer about the Western Sussex Business Campus Phase 2. And he did Dalton Hignott's 5-month evaluation. Over the course of the next few weeks, the plan is to set the transformer at 106 Spring Street, start working in Bel Air multifamily, and continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway to LED. And just want to comment, it was great to see so many people here tonight in this room. So many great things happening in the city, and the city community rally around it is pretty awesome, so thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have Public Works Wastewater Treatment, Councilman King.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights from each department. I'll start with the Public Works Department. Check valve replacement was done at the industrial park, as well as a new pump is online. The Herring lift station also received a new check valve. The team has been working extremely hard and busy throughout our city dealing with water leaks. Some of the repairs included a broken line on Stein Highway. The team will continue to work on repairs over the next upcoming weeks. Water service valves repair were done at Bel Air, and new water taps installed on Wilford Street. The leaf machine is done for the season, and maintenance was done on the snowplow. I'm going to jump over to the wastewater treatment facility. All is going well. Plant performance remains good. Ordering materials for the new RES pump. And then here's just a couple projects that will be happening over the next few weeks. Team will plan for a hydrant replacement in the front of 206 Shipley Street, repair water leaks at Walmart and Cinnamons. Team will continue to repair cleanouts on the smoke testing list, and of course keep the plant up and running with 0 violations. And just to piggyback on what Councilman McCoy said, it was a really good night. It was great to see so many people here and so many people online watching. I mean, we've got a lot of great things happening throughout our city. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Best time to do repairs to the snow plow is when it's 60 degrees, right? Yeah, City of Seaford, stay tuned. Lots coming this year. We're really being blessed, and it's appreciate everybody's support and appreciate the taxpayers' support of us doing all this. So thank that. With that, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman King. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, case unanimous. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Yeah, good meeting. Real good meeting.